So, when you think of a money wizard, who pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably some Wall Street pro in a fancy suit, right? I mean, it just makes sense. But what if I told you the data paints a completely different picture, and that the person who's really got their financial house in order, well, it might just be your neighbor, not some big shot hedge fund manager. So yeah, let's just ask the question directly. Who's actually better with their money day to day? Is it the finance professional, the one who's swimming in complex market data? Or is it the everyday person, your friend, maybe your coworker, maybe even you? It kind of feels like an obvious answer, but trust me, the truth is way, way more surprising. So get this. A recent study decided to put this exact question to the test. They basically set up a head-to-head showdown between these two groups. They wanted to finally settle the debate, right? Does all that professional expertise actually translate to personal financial success? The results? Well, let's just say they might completely change how you think about money, for real. All right, so the first part of the study, not a huge shocker to anyone, really. When they tested everyone on pure financial knowledge, all the jargon, the complex ideas, the finance pros just crushed it. And I mean, of course they did. This is their whole world. They live and breathe this stuff. So yeah, score one for the experts. But hold on, this is where the story gets really interesting. Because as it turns out, knowing all the textbook answers doesn't automatically mean you're making all the right moves with your own money. There's a massive, massive difference between theory and practice. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears. We're moving away from what people know to what people actually do. And listen, this is the really crucial part. We're talking about the daily habits, the practical decisions that actually build wealth over time. Things like, setting up automatic savings transfers or just following a simple budget. This is where the real winner is crowned. And here it is, the big reveal. When the study started measuring actual financial behavior, stuff like consistently saving, sticking to a budget, staying away from high-interest debt, the results just completely flipped on their head. The non-finance folks, just regular everyday people, they actually scored higher. That's right. The quote-unquote amateurs had better, more effective money habits than the pros. I mean, how wild is that? This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Knowing all the textbook stuff is one thing, but actually doing it, that's a whole other ballgame. You can read every finance book ever written, but if you don't turn that knowledge into consistent action, it's just theory. So what's going on here? What's causing this huge gap? How are people with less book smarts winning in the real world? Well, the study pointed to a really powerful new force in personal finance that might just explain this whole thing. It's a trend that has absolutely exploded over the last few years, all thanks to social media and people just being hungry for advice that actually makes sense. And that is the rise of the finfluencer. So what in the world is a finfluencer? It's pretty simple, actually. It's an online creator, think TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, who shares financial advice, tips, and their own personal finance stories. They're not always your traditional certified experts, but man, they have a massive and super engaged audience. And wow, the difference in who they listen to is just stark. Your average person, someone outside the finance industry, they are way more likely to turn to these online creators for advice. And here's the kicker, they actually act on it. The pros, on the other hand, they seem to be sticking to the old school sources, and it looks like it's just not as effective for their own personal habits. So what's the secret sauce here? Why does this advice actually work so well? Well, first off, it's relatable. These creators talk about their own debts and their own budgeting screw-ups, not just their highlights. Second, it's super practical. They're talking about simple steps you can take, like right now, not some complex theory for 10 years down the road. They also totally ditch the confusing jargon, which makes the whole topic feel way less scary. And because of all that, it's just easier to follow. It's actionable. All right, so let's tie this all together. What does this actually mean for you? How can you use this wild insight in your own financial life? Really, it all comes down to rethinking where you get your advice and what actually truly drives results. Here it is, the main takeaway. Being good with money isn't really about being some genius who can predict the market. It's so much more about building simple, consistent habits. It's about having the discipline to automate your savings, to pay yourself first every single month. It's about building a system that actually works for your life. And honestly, that should feel incredibly empowering. You don't need a fancy degree to win at this. You just need to start. And so that leaves us with one last pretty important question to chew on. In this world where we're just flooded with information, financial news, complicated analysis, a million online creators, who are you really listening to? Because maybe, just maybe, the real expert isn't the person who knows the most, but the one who inspires you to do the most.